You know, when you hear the word shoplifting, you probably think of pretty minor stuff, right? But what's happening in the UK right now is so much bigger than that. Behind all the headlines, there's this huge, complex criminal world that's growing fast, and it's hitting businesses and shopkeepers really, really hard. So let's get into what's actually going on.
It's every day. Just think about that. That's from Mohammed Rabbani, a guy who runs a convenience store. For him, this isn't some random problem. It's a daily battle. And his words, they just perfectly capture the human side of what has become a massive national crisis.
And when you look at the official numbers, wow. Police in England and Wales recorded over 500,000 shoplifting offenses in just 1 year. That's a huge number, and it's been climbing like crazy since the pandemic. But, and this is a big but, that number, it doesn't even come close to telling the whole story.
Right. This is where your jaw might hit the floor. That 500,000 number we just saw, a top criminologist, Professor Emmeline Taylor, says that could be less than 3% of what's actually happening. The true scale of this thing is enormous, and it's happening almost entirely off the books.
Okay, so let's dig into the data a little bit. What does this everyday crime wave actually look like when you break it down?
Well, first off, it's everywhere. This isn't just a London problem or a Manchester problem. We're talking about a 13% jump in England and Wales, and an even bigger 15% rise in Scotland. It is a truly national trend.
But, some places are definitely getting hit harder than others. The police in Cleveland, which is where Mohammed's shop is, they recorded the highest rate in all of England and Wales. We're talking almost 14 offenses for every single 1,000 people. That's just staggering.
So what's driving this? It's not just that there are more crimes. The actual nature of shoplifting is changing. So who are the people doing this, and what's their new playbook?
To really get what's going on, you have to understand the criminals. And if you're just picturing one type of person, you're missing the bigger picture. The game has totally changed.
Experts have basically broken it down into 3 main groups, and they often overlap. You've got these highly organized criminal gangs, then this new kind of shoplifting entrepreneur, and of course the more traditional offenders who are driven by addiction. Let's take a look at each one.
First up, the organized gangs. And honestly, calling them shoplifters doesn't really do it justice. These are professional crews. They use military-style tactics, distractions, coordinated raids on multiple stores. There's one group tracking 63 of these gangs, and they've stolen at least £2.4 million worth of stuff in just 5 years.
Then you have this fascinating new type of thief, the shoplifting entrepreneur. These are people who figured out there's a really profitable side hustle here. They're not just grabbing random things, they are targeting very specific products that they know they can sell online fast. And their wish list is, well, it's specific. Yeah, you've got the obvious stuff like perfume and designer clothes, but also collectible stuffed animals, garden furniture, Christmas decorations, and get this, even bags of gravel. It just goes to show how targeted and demand-driven this all is.
And finally, there's the group that still makes up the huge majority of incidents. We're talking an estimated 70%. These are people stealing to fund an addiction. One reformed shoplifter, Keely Knowles, said she used to steal designer goods just to feed her habit. It's a really desperate cycle of crime.
So you've got this massive, complex crime wave with all these different players, which brings up a pretty obvious question. Where are the consequences? Why does it seem like everyone's getting away with it?
Well, here's a huge piece of the puzzle. Of those 500,000 investigations last year, more than half, 56%, were just closed. Why? Because no suspect was ever identified. For shopkeepers, it must feel like they're just shouting into the wind.
And even when they do catch somebody, the whole process just drags on and on. 10 years ago, it took about a month for a case to get to the courts. Today, it's almost doubled to 59 days. That kind of delay just screams that this isn't a priority.
And that really gets to the heart of it all. Professor Taylor says this lack of consequences is the crux of the entire problem. I mean, if thieves think they can get away with it, why on earth would they stop?
But the story doesn't end there. Faced with this absolute crisis, retailers, the police, and the government are finally starting to get their act together and coordinate a real response.
And they're coming at it from all sides. You've got police with a new action plan, retailers are actually funding their own police intelligence unit, and they're spending a record $1.8 billion on prevention. The government is also stepping in with new laws to protect workers and get tougher on those so-called low-value thefts. It's a full-on pushback.
So with all this happening, you'd think a solution has to be close, right? Well, it's just not that simple. There's a really fundamental debate going on about the right way to even solve this thing.
And really, it all boils down to this: punishment or rehabilitation. Do you go hard after the organized criminals and send them to prison for a long time? Or do you try to tackle the root causes, like addiction, that are driving most of the crime?
And you can hear the two sides so clearly in their own words. A former detective, David Spencer, says the organized guys need serious jail time. But Keely Knowles, the reformed shoplifter, says, for people like her, prison is just a total waste of resources because it never deals with the addiction.
So here's the bottom line. We've got plans, we've got funding, we've got a fierce debate. But does any of it actually make a difference to the people who are living this nightmare every single day?
And that brings us right back to Muhammad. After he was assaulted by a thief, he didn't even bother reporting it. His reason? He just didn't think anything would be done. And that's a heartbreaking way to end, because it just perfectly shows the massive gap between all the plans and the tough reality on our streets.